In Persona 5, the main prevailing question is if its main characters are justified in their actions. The Phantom Thieves is a group that reforms the ways of criminals without their consent. The villains of the game are despicable, and what makes them worse is the fact that all of them could believably exist in our own world. And like those villains, they manage to escape from the clutches of bars as they continue to take advantage of the powerless. This is why it's so easy for the player to side with the Phantom Thieves, as they change the hearts of soon-to-be criminals and inspire change in others. However, the Phantom Thieves are anonymous, which leads to initial pushback from the public, and no one pushes back more than Akechi. Akechi is a detective of the law who agrees that criminals should be punished, but doesn't agree with the methods of the Phantom Thieves. He argues that the change of heart isn't how a criminal should be reformed. If just one group, a group who no one even knows, could change the hearts of criminals, then what would prevent them from changing the heart of someone they simply didn't like? Of course, we know that the Phantom Thieves would never do such a thing, but it's directly because of their anonymity that the public favors Akechi for the first half of the game. But as the Phantom Thieves continue to do more good for the world, public opinion turns against him. Akechi maintains that the Phantom Thieves acting outside the law sets a dangerous precedent, and it's why he takes matters into his own hands when the Phantom Thieves' biggest target, Takumura, is killed. This, in my opinion, is the single biggest moment in the plot, and it represents the three paths someone can take in opposition to the Phantom Thieves. Sai, the person working with Akechi on the case, earnestly believes the words Akechi spoke on the television. Meanwhile, Shido, the main antagonist, acts against the Phantom Thieves due to his own distorted desires, being the first villain in the game capable of this due to his political influence. Meanwhile, Akechi didn't mean anything he said all throughout the game. While the Phantom Thieves had been behind the change of heart, Akechi was the one responsible for the mental shutdowns, believing it's justified to end the lives of others. Whether it's a criminal or simply someone against his own message, Akechi and the man who gives them orders, Shido, believe they deserve the harshest punishment of all. While Shido is simply pure evil, I find Akechi to be an absolutely fascinating character. Like the Phantom Thieves, he was wronged severely. His mother quickly passed on after his birth, and the one who raised him afterward only saw him as a tool. It may be terrifying to say this, but Akechi is a very understandable character. If you were treated like shit for your entire life, it'd be hard not to hold a grudge against everyone and everything around you. You would do everything in your power to kill Shido. Akechi is a cruel reminder of what the Phantom Thieves could have become if they let their abuse turn into more abuse. So then, if not even the law can stop Shido and his accomplice, then what even is justice? Surprisingly, this question isn't limited to just Persona 5. Anime has always tossed around this question, and by far the most famous example of this is Death Note, a show about a man creating a utopia by murdering both criminals and those who oppose him. I was already a fan of Death Note, but it wasn't until playing Persona 5 that my appreciation for it grew even further. While Akechi's motivations are selfish, Light's are selfless. While the power of the Death Note transforms Light Yagami into just another psychopath, he starts the series thinking that he's in the right. His motivation, like the Phantom Thieves, is to reform society, but while the Phantom Thieves do so without causing any harm to their victims, Light does so with the most cruel punishment of all. It's interesting to think who Light Yagami could have become if he was given the option to change people's hearts. Likewise, I wonder what the Phantom Thieves would have done with Death Note. Death Note itself gives us the answer, however, as soon as the series starts in fact. When Light obtains the Death Note, the god of death Ryuk tells him that he's the only person he's seen who's killed this many people. If Joker obtained a Death Note, I could see him killing Kamoshida. Kamoshida is the man that not only made his criminal record public, but is also the man who ostracized Ryuji, physically abused Mishima, and sexually abused Shiho. It goes without saying, but this is one of the most evil antagonists I've ever seen, made more terrifying by the fact that he could easily exist in our own world. If anything, I could see Joker killing him feeling that there's nothing else he could have done. If he continued to go about these murders, even if he had good intentions, he'd still just become another Akechi. That's why the other alternative is fun to think about. What if Joker's guilt prevented him from killing anyone else? Would he be a better person for it? On one hand, he would be, since he wouldn't be ending the lives of anyone. The game makes it clear just how wrong it is when the Phantom Thieves fail to save Okumura. Yet, if Joker didn't kill or have access to the Metaverse, the cycle of abuse would only continue. While Ryuji and An would be saved from their suffering, every other member would be cast to inhumane fates that they don't deserve. Yusuke would continue having his work stolen, Makoto would still be bossed around, Futaba would still be blamed for her mother's death, and Haru would still be married off to an abuser. Is that right? Is that fair? Light Yagami would say no. He uses the Death Note because he thinks no one else will. He feels less of a desire and more of a need to commit all of his murders. He thinks that what he's doing is admirable. I was 13 when I first watched Death Note, and for the first few episodes, I was inclined to agree with Light. On the surface, killing criminals seems like a good thing. It would certainly make the world a less violent place as wrongdoers would run from him and good people would live knowing that anyone who hurts them would be killed. Doesn't that sound an awful lot like the reasons Akechi's against the Phantom Thieves? Sure, the results may be good, but the ends don't justify the means. This is Akechi's stance on the Phantom Thieves, and is also L's stance on Light Yagami. I find the comparison between these two fascinating, as they both explore reforming society, yet the methods of which they achieve those goals make them unrecognizable. The Phantom Thieves are undeniably doing good for the world, while Light is doing evil. Early on, Light makes it clear that he's willing to kill anyone who opposes him when he attempts a murder on L. As early as the second episode, Light betrays his moral code by doing something he swore not to. He deludes himself into thinking otherwise, initially choosing not to target any detractors that aren't a threat to him, but once his power and influence grows, so does his delusion. The second part of Death Note isn't as good as the first, but one thing it does a great job of is showing how the power to play God will turn absolutely anyone into a monster. Halfway through, Light wins. He's killed L, and yet the series isn't over since Light is no longer the hero. As another detective comes to replace him, Light's actions have caused pandemonium. As the criminal population nears extinction, movements against his actions do as well. While the world is more peaceful and crime rates have deteriorated, the quality of life of everyday civilians reaches an all-time low, the levels of fear surrounding the Death Note reaching an all-time high. For the longest time, I believed the series should have ended with L's death. And while the anime was never as good since, Death Note needed to end with Light Yagami being shot and killed. Death Note is a story about how using extreme methods with good intentions makes you no different from those you kill. Fundamentally, Persona 5 is also about that, otherwise Akechi wouldn't be in the game. These two characters are so fascinating precisely because they show how difficult it can be to make change in the world, only making the Phantom Thieves more admirable. But of course, the Phantom Thieves don't exist, and there is no Metaverse to steal hearts in. The reason why Persona 5 resonated so much with me in high school was because of the fundamental escapist appeal there was to people being given a tool they could use to not only free themselves of the chains put on them, but also use that freedom to help others in need. As someone who felt trapped in high school, I knew that I wouldn't ever be able to get rid of that feeling until I was out. By the time I played Persona 5, I was already in my senior year, and I can't understate how vindicating it felt to play this game and see myself in all the characters. There may have been nothing I could do at the time, but playing Persona 5 helped me live on through that difficult period of my life. When I first became an adult last year, I thought that I would no longer need Persona 5. Oh boy, was I fucking wrong! When I got a job, it wasn't solely because I became an adult and needed one, but also because my dumbass just crashed my car. I had the money for the ticket and the initial bills, but paying for a new car and getting insurance on it alongside the medical bills meant that I needed to start making money. As such, I applied for a grocery store job and began my adult life. I actually didn't mind my job at first, but one coworker made it just a little bit difficult for me. He's the lead of my department, but he basically works the same job I do, with only a few added responsibilities. Despite this, he still thinks he can do whatever the hell he wants while management does nothing but coddle him. This man shows up 15 minutes late every day, spends 15 minutes buying coffee from the store after having already clocked in, spends a majority of his time standing around on the computer, probably browsing nhentai.net, works slower than anyone else, and has insulted me on a multitude of occasions. Needless to say, but I'm looking for another job. This shit fucking sucks. After working with him for as long as I have, I had already found myself a real-life palace ruler. Something changed in me when I realized this. Knowing he's a piece of shit made me feel justified treating him the same way. I never insulted him to his face, both because I didn't want to take things a step too far, but also because I'm a pussy. The farthest I took it was nicknaming him Gnome because he's short, has a beard, and has a funny voice. I even changed his phone contact to Gnome, along with planting gnomes in my work's room. Gnomes that are still there, as he is too dense to understand why the gnomes are there in the first place. Personally, I find these specific actions on their own to be all in good fun. It's how me and my coworkers have coped with what we've been through. It was on a separate occasion, however, that I took it too far. I wish that when I decided to take upon my justice, that I remembered the message of one of my favorite series. Oshi no Ko follows its protagonist Aqua Hoshino, a man with one clear goal: kill the man behind his mother's murder. Once the prologue is over, his mind has been warped by his seething hatred toward his father. For the first season, Aqua is someone who will do whatever it takes to achieve his goals. That changes, however, starting in the 2.5D stage play arc. Given how he was reincarnated to this body, everything came easy to him, with the first few arcs existing to show off how much of a badass he is. This arc, however, is the first time Aqua has to put in effort in order to achieve his goal. The play's script requires superb acting that forces him to reach the depths of his emotions, something that has always resulted in a panic attack once he does. It's a major hurdle for him, but he does force himself through it. You can tell that for the first time in the series, he's genuinely enjoying the process of acting, but he has to let it go for his big scene. In order to act with all his emotions, he needs to remember his past and his hatred. In order to become the best actor he can never enjoy acting again. It's the price he has to pay to achieve his retribution. With that established, it makes the revelation of the private arc hit all the harder. Aqua ends up learning that his half-brother's father died long ago, and it's when he learns this that he can finally let his revenge go. He feels empty, but he can finally smile again. Of course, his father was actually someone different, but deep down, Aqua doesn't want to acknowledge that possibility. He feels guilt for the ways he's manipulated Akane, and since he carried his burden entirely on his own not to hurt anyone else, he feels free. He can enjoy being a public figure, enjoy having a girlfriend, and finally be able to let others stay close to him. Aqua reminds me of Akechi, both of which enduring trauma that fixates them on revenge. But what makes Aqua so fascinating is how much his revenge contradicts with his kindness. Before becoming Aqua Hoshino, he was once Goro Amamiya, a man who was birthed by a mother who died after conceiving him. Living without parents, it was always Goro's dream to work at a hospital and make sure no kid needs to live the troubled life that he had. For the most part, he was able to live out his dream, but he couldn't succeed every time. Sarina was the patient he got closest to, and was also the one he lost. Despite not knowing that Sarina was reincarnated as his now sister Ruby Hoshino, Aqua still feels a protective instinct toward her. Perhaps reminding her of the girl he wanted to save, Aqua never wanted to burden her with any of the pain that he's dealt with. She was lucky enough not to see Ai's corpse. She's moved on, happy to carry on her legacy as an idol. But even just the smallest bit of information can change everything. When Ruby sees Goro's corpse, she finally connects the pieces to the puzzle. Goro and Ai were killed by the same person. While Aqua is free, Ruby now has to take on the burden of hatred, one which will not yield. The mainstay arc exists to show how Ruby transforms from the innocent and pure idol she wanted to be into someone just as manipulative as Aqua. When Aqua questions her about her sudden and calculated rise to stardom, he sees the seeds of the same hatred he once had. When he confronts the person who put those ideas into her head, he finally learns the truth. His father is still alive. Himekawa's mother had an affair with Hikaru Kamaki, and once her husband found out, a double suicide happened right before Ai's death. Aqua deliberately ignored the evidence because deep down he knew his revenge was turning him into the worst version of himself. But when he finally does, he has to push everyone away once again. While he spent time wallowing away in his own self-pity, his girlfriend Akane Kurokawa had found the identity of Hikaru Kamaki. She knows all too well how much worse it would be for Aqua to attain his revenge. Aqua accepts that his revenge would come at the cost of himself, and yet he still chooses to push Akane away. He chooses to let his guilt overcome him, doing everything in his power for his goals. For the first time in the manga, he stabs Ruby in the back. Once the secret of them being Ai's children is revealed, Ruby disowns Aqua. By this point of the story, he's accepted that he'll never be allowed to be happy, his guilt consuming him more than it ever has. Oshi no Ko is not over as of the time of me writing this, but it is nearing its final chapters. Aqua, after all the sacrifices it took, finally got to speak with Hikaru. Regardless of what Aqua does to him in this final showdown, the message of Oshi no Ko has always been clear. Nothing good comes from revenge. Justice and hatred cannot coincide. Aqua is a genuinely good person. In his past life, he wanted nothing but to help others, while in his current, he minimized the damage everyone else would take. Even screwing over Ruby ended up working out in the end, Ai's name getting put back into a good light after Aqua's movie about her is finished. One thing I hear constantly is that Aqua is this generation's Light Yagami, and every time I hear this, I genuinely wonder if we saw the same show. Light didn't end up caring who he had to kill to make his point. Light was fine sharing his burdens if it was more convenient to him. Why else would he keep around someone like Misa? Aqua, on the other hand, is told countless times by other characters that they can help him with his goal, and he always refuses. Even when tainted with revenge, Aqua has a moral code. He isn't a crazy fucking psychopath like Light. It's because of this that Aqua is a far more relatable character. He's a man overrun with guilt and trauma. What separates Aqua and Light is that Aqua knows that what he's doing is wrong, but he keeps on moving toward his goal since he feels responsible for not preventing Ai's death. When Aqua turned 15, he was given a DVD by Gotanda. In this DVD, Ai states that she left Hikaru because she couldn't handle the pressure of being honest with someone, but that deep down, she wanted to spend her life with him. Aqua, loving his mother with all his heart, saw no other choice but to relay this message to him. Whatever the costs end up being are still unknown, but what I do know is that Oshi no Ko is one of my favorite works of fiction. It's a cautionary tale of the costs of revenge. I think that message will be clear even if Aqua gets a happy ending, and it's a message I wish I truly took in the first time I read it. When I was at the peak of hatred toward my work environment, I decided to take justice into my own hands, but not at the workplace. In an online community I was an active part of, I impersonated someone of a different community. In some aspects, you could argue that he deserved it given his behavior of trolling, insulting, and belittling me and my friends within the community. I mean, he was banned for a reason. Given my circumstances at work, I can't blame myself for what I did. However, that doesn't change the fact that what I did was fundamentally horrible. I even ended up agreeing with the user I screwed over when he said that what I've done was much worse than anything else he's done. I wasn't punished by the community in question. They've acknowledged me as someone who didn't mean for this to hurt as much as it did, and respect the contributions I've made up to this point. Regardless, I left of my own accord. I knew that in order not to do such a thing again, that I needed to leave for good. I gave up my hatred for my department lead at work after this incident, and decided that instead of letting this desire for revenge consume me, that I'd move on and look for another job. If it weren't for what I did online, my tainted sense of justice might have spilled into my personal life. I'm glad it didn't either. Of course, it'll never change my feelings or frustrations. I still think I'm valid in thinking how I did. If I were to lash out responsibly even, I would have been able to help my coworkers. But sometimes it's healthier to just think about yourself. The reason Aqua became so consumed in his justice was because he wanted to help his mother. It can be argued that even despite his justifiable reasoning, that he's best moving on. Thankfully, moving on isn't difficult for me. I can change my job if I simply just look hard enough. My coworkers may still be suffering under a man I hate, but they can make the same choice that I plan on making. While seeing those who've wronged you go unpunished is frustrating, there's also a peace in letting that frustration go. But sometimes you can't. Justice doesn't always take form of revenge. Like, we all know that revenge leads to nothing but sorrow. It's a message drilled to our heads constantly, yet it's strictly because of this that it's such an easy one to forget. How else could I have seen Oshi no Ko and loved it, only to go down Aqua's path a mere year later? Sometimes, though, you can't escape a terrible situation. This is what makes the messages of Persona 5 so complex to me, and also what makes the end of the game so fascinating. Akechi may have been lying to himself, but his ideologies resonated with the public for a reason. The Phantom Thieves may be understandable in their actions, and they all have a strong enough moral code not to abuse their power, but that power isn't justice. The change of heart is someone's ability to decide what is and isn't wrong. Such a power is extremely dangerous to have, and Akechi's murders are what the game uses to prove that point. I may have used Aqua as my main example of how revenge isn't justice due to his greater humanity, but Akechi does this too. The difference between them is that while Aqua can be redeemed, Akechi is past the point of return. Akechi is the showcase of what the Phantom Thieves could have easily become if they had let their hatred foster. It's the game's ultimate proof of why the incredible power its world provides can never be sustainable. That's why, after defeating Yaldabaoth, the Phantom Thieves choose to erase the existence of the Metaverse, knowing what harm it would cause if it continued to exist. One of my favorite scenes from Persona 5 is exclusive to its Royal Remaster, where its new character Kasumi gives her opinions on the Phantom Thieves. She says that she disagrees with their actions, but not for the same reasons as Akechi. At this point of the story, she has no reason not to trust that the Phantom Thieves will choose their targets wisely. However, what she doesn't trust is the effect their influence will have on a wider scale. While the victims of their targets are undeniably in a better spot due to their influence, what about the people the Phantom Thieves can't help? The Phantom Thieves are just a group of high schoolers after all. They have lives to live outside of their missions, and they can't save everyone who needs to be saved. Kasumi's fear is that these people will become dependent on the Phantom Thieves, praying for them to save them as they do nothing to escape from the hell they're in. The game proves her right even as soon as the Okumura arc, where the Phantom Thieves initially took on the suspect simply because it's what they were expected to do. People became complacent against him, simply assuming that the Phantom Thieves would do the work for them. The Phantom Thieves started as a mere self-defense against Kamoshida, later birthing into a want to help Yusuke from Madarame and the students of Shujin from Kaneshiro. They had no specific purpose to help with the Okumura case, with their fame being the primary reason for them being targeted. Of course, it turned out that Haru would be deeply disadvantaged if Okumura were to reign free, so they did have a good reason to target him. But since they flew too close to the sun, Akechi gave them a dose of reality. Are the Phantom Thieves just? No. For as much as it pains me to say it, Akechi and Kasumi are right. In that case, what even is the point of Persona 5? Why is Persona 5 such an important game? If what Kasumi said is right, then wouldn't playing Persona 5 in itself make its players complacent toward change? No. Fiction and reality are different beasts. In the world of Persona 5, the Phantom Thieves actually exist. Therefore, a person in that universe can reasonably believe that the Phantom Thieves could save them. In our world, the Phantom Thieves don't exist. It's why, instead of becoming complacent, the people who play Persona 5 can feel vindicated and empowered to start their own change. You may not be able to hop into someone's palace and steal their heart, but you can leave your environment or cancel those who've wronged you. Despite my stance on revenge, I think that speaking out against abuse is a justified form of self-defense. It may not be what I chose to do given the headache it causes for everyone, but it is justice. I had a friend who wrote a long document about the ways he was abused in an online community. He didn't speak out for years because of the pushback that would be received from said abusers, but due to his love of the game he was contributing to, he didn't want to leave the community. He wanted him and his friends to feel safe being a part of it, which was what finally caused him to rise up against said abuse. Having read what these people did to him, I was fully supportive of him releasing that document. When used responsibly, the power of the internet can be just as beautiful as a change of heart. The Metaverse may not exist, but the internet is a tool with similar power. Just like how a report to HR can be a great contribution to a good work environment, a tweet longer or lengthy Google Doc can be the same. People may be frustrated by how hard it is to get an abuser fired with just one report, but the system exists the way it does so that no one can abuse it. The internet doesn't have such restrictions, and it's how the internet can make out even innocents to be monsters. Oshi no Ko isn't only a masterpiece for how it tackles Aqua's character arc. One of its best traits is how it dives deep into the depths of the entertainment industry. As early as the third arc, the series covers cancel culture, a phenomenon where even a minor slip-up can cause a chain reaction of harassment and bullying towards someone deemed an abuser. The two episodes that tackled the subject follow Akane Kurokawa, a girl who had been struggling to stand out on the reality dating show she was a part of. Feeling the pressure to step up her game and not be taken off the show, she accidentally inflicts a minor injury among one of her co-stars. The fact that she immediately regretted it and apologized for it didn't matter. The way the show was edited portrayed her as a villain, causing the public to treat her accordingly. The extent to what these words do to her well-being is genuinely painful to watch. If it weren't for Aqua's interference, Akane would have been yet another suicide at the hands of the public's retribution. One of my favorite YouTube videos is Solar Sans' Journey to Hell. It makes the argument that humans are too quick to seek retribution above rehabilitation. Hell is quite possibly the best example of human punishment going to the absolute extreme. But it's not the most realistic. Many don't believe in hell, but cancel culture isn't a matter of simply believing in its existence. There's non-stop evidence of people being accused of things they didn't do, and even more evidence of less egregious wrongdoers getting punishment disproportionate to what they deserved. That second category is the most worrying one, since people do legitimately make mistakes. If I wasn't given the option to grow like I was, I don't exactly know where I'd be. Because of the amount of scrutiny the internet has put on me throughout the many years I've made videos, I've repeatedly begun to wonder if I've made too many mistakes. I know the answer is no, though. I've only just turned 19, and while many people don't initially realize how young I am, it's a big factor toward explaining many of the rash and frankly stupid things I've done over the years. I'm not dodging responsibility either. I want to be better than who I was because who I was is someone who embarrasses the shit out of me. The most terrifying part of all this is that I'm saying all this as a public figure, and yet I'm not even famous, or at the very least, my fame hasn't given me any income worth writing home about. While I still think it's wrong for people to harass the elite, at least they get paid enough to handle the scrutiny people give to them. The difference between then and now is that the internet now makes absolutely anyone a target of cancellation. In my last video, the message was to treat others with kindness since doing so can change the lives of those around you. Something basic that I neglected to bring up was the principle of treating others how you want to be treated. I realized this from a comment I got, brushing aside the message as something dumb and obvious. But if you take just one look into the never-ending abyss of the internet, you'll see how everyone forgets even the most simple of messages, and how anyone can be susceptible to it, including myself. So for everyone watching, I want you to keep in mind something that anyone can forget. The internet is not a toy. Like a gun, it's a tool of great destruction that can save people when used responsibly, but can also cause tragedies in the wrong hands. So next time you decide to take your justice on someone, just remember that they're human too. They can still be a piece of shit, but that humanity will always exist. Oh my god, this was a beast of a video. It's not my longest script, but it's easily the most ambitious thing I've written. My big YouTube inspirations are creators like Emplemon and Super Eyepatchwolf, creators that can hook you on the stupidest subject matters and have you leaving the experience learning something you never thought you would. Never before have I even been able to replicate their style of writing due to just how much care goes into such a script. Chances are that this video isn't as good as those, but it's the first video I've made that I feel like has at least been able to replicate such a style. To anyone who expected this to be another review of an obscure manga, I have to make it known that such a format isn't fully sustainable since not every obscure manga I read will be something that inspires me to make a video. I'm extremely thankful toward the insanely high amounts of views I've been getting lately, but until I have any reason not to think this way, this channel will remain a hobby. I'll take it very seriously since I truly love anime and manga, but I'm going to make the quality of my videos a priority over their viewership. That doesn't mean that I won't cover interesting subjects or make my thumbnails appealing to click on, it just means that you shouldn't know what to expect of me other than anime and manga. I just wanted to make that clear since I never want to lose my passion for YouTube again. I truly love making videos, and I never want to compromise that love for anyone. It's for this reason that any support I get will mean even more to me than it would otherwise. If you want to go down the deepest level of support you can do so through Patreon. Of course, I'd be remiss not to mention my wonderful Phantom tier patrons Mystic Owl, Jesse, and Squizzy, and my Confidant tier patrons Regimania, Plasma, Eternum, and Ghoul. Thank you very much for your continued support on my videos. If you want amazing benefits such as a private Discord server, over 300 scrapped video ideas, 500 unlisted videos, early access to my videos, and my entire Google Drive, you can find it on Patreon. I also have a third tier that no one's bought yet, so perhaps you could be the first name there. Regardless of what you choose to do with this information, I thank you for watching the video. All donations mean the most to me, a view is impactful enough as is, so it's all I truly need. As such, I hope you got something out of it, and I'll see you all next time.